This is Uncommonly Remarkable, where we discuss the surprising everyday lives and notable accomplishments of community leaders, entrepreneurs, and everyday folks like you and me. My name is Artis Beatty. I am a doctor of optometry and the chief medical officer for My Eye Doctor OD. Though we will inevitably touch on topics within my area of expertise, the opinions and the conversations held here are separate from my work with My Eye Doctor.
Welcome. This is a very special episode of Uncommonly Remarkable, and not just because we've got somewhat of a celebrity for a guest today. We are bringing you this episode from the EyeTalks stage at Optometry's meeting, and this is pretty cool because from my understanding, this is the first time we're doing this.
Yeah,
pretty exciting. So there are a lot of firsts happening for me because typically speaking, I am in a studio. I get to control everything, the temperature, the sound, the noise level. And so we don't get to control all those things today. So that's going to be a learning experience for me. And, you know, this is really the first time that I've had a guest that's actually in optometry.
Oh, wow.
That's also going to be a first for me. So if you've been listening to the podcast or anything about the podcast, I have selected folks that I've met over my lifetime, and I've brought them in to really talk a little bit about what has made them great, the things that they've done in their lives, how they got from point A to point B.
Yeah.
We usually learn a lesson or two during the process, and then it's become this fun thing that continues to build. We're going to have a great time because although I do know you probably better than I know a lot of folks, you've done some things that I didn't really know about until we started doing some of the pre-work, so this is going to be pretty interesting for me. You describe yourself as a person who's loyal, as a father, as being creative, a builder, and a connector. You're currently the program director for brand inclusion at My Eye Doctor. You co-host one of the top optometry podcasts. You are a founder of Defocus Media and one of the creators behind Black Eye Care Perspective,
correct,
as well as Africa Media.
Yes, sir.
And so there's a lot for us to talk about.
Oh, yeah.
But the biggest thing for me is that you're my friend, you're a trusted colleague. I really appreciate you being here, and you're everybody's favorite optometrist.
Oh, my.
So, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Dr. Darryl Glover to Uncommonly Remarkable.
Thank you so much, Dr. Beatty. This is a special moment for me. For those that may not know, I love to run my mouth, and I'm going to try to take a step back and not run my mouth and let Dr. Beatty talk. But this is going to be an engaging conversation because he really knows everything about me from when I was a young lad. Let's just say that. But I'm ready to get started, man.
Yeah, well, you know, I always say the best place to start is the beginning.
Okay.
So we should start at the beginning. So full disclosure, we've known each other a long time because when I was a young practicing optometrist, you were starting your career as a technician.
That is correct.
And we got to work together a little bit.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, those were good days. And so from when we were working together, I felt like there was always a little bit of a back and forth because there were things that I was learning and I was trying to teach you those things at the same time.
Yep,
right?
100%.
As we were working together, though, were there things that helped sway your opinion and make you decide you were going to go towards optometry school?
Well, I mean, no doubt about it. I mean, number one, the thing that really helped motivate me decide to jump into the wonderful world of optometry is seeing someone that looks like me be in a position of leadership, make patients happy, but most importantly, make an impact every single day. And that was just phenomenal to me. The way that you interacted with patients, how the patients always said, "Where's Dr. Beatty? I need to see Dr. Beatty." I mean, you have like a cult following. And even to this day, in the practice, they're still asking for you. And they look at me like I'm chopped liver, right?
No.
Oh, yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, I'll take that lead of being everyone's favorite optometrist, but I think you were it before me.
Well, so first, I appreciate that. I really do. But, you know, you said something that I think is actually very important.
Yeah.
And I'd never thought about it. We were having breakfast a couple of days ago.
Yeah.
And we started having a conversation around just kind of kids and generations.
Yep.
And one of the things you said is that you never thought about optometry the same way some people do because you worked with someone who looked like you.
Yep.
And I never really thought about that, right?
Yeah.
To me, it's an interesting thought, because when we think about Black Eye Care Perspective, which we definitely have to talk about, that is one of the things that has kind of led you towards trying to understand how to make that change, not just in our day-to-day practice, but everywhere.
Absolutely.
For optometry.
Yeah.
Talk about that a little bit.
So, I always say optometry is an amazing and beautiful profession. And I want the whole world to know about optometry. And I know all my colleagues out there want the same. But the problem we have in optometry is there's a branding problem. We don't talk about this profession as much. When students come out of school, they're always thinking about med school, dentistry, all these other professions, right? And optometry is never number one. We got to do a better job when it comes to branding.
Yeah.
And for me, working as your technician, I always saw someone that was great, someone that could take care of patients, and someone that looked just like me. And I was in a bubble, because one day I went to a conference and I looked around and I was with one of my other colleagues, and we were the only two Black doctors there. And I'm talking thousands of people. And at that moment, I knew that I needed to do something about this. And myself and Dr. Adam Ramsey created Black Eye Care Perspective. And essentially it was to help create and foster lifelong relationships with African Americans in the eye care industry. And since we've kicked that off, we've really made an impact, have made a change. And the one thing that we really focus on with Black Eye Care Perspective is it's not a black thing, it's not a purple thing, it's not a green thing, it's an optometrist thing. We need more optometrists, and this is just a different avenue to bring more optometrists into our profession.
I love that. And you're exactly right. When we think about where we are from an optometry perspective, in general, we actually had Dr. Edlow have a discussion yesterday about where we are. And we see that over time, there's this tiny growth in ophthalmology staying really relatively stable, people coming in equal people going out. We see the population aging, and we all know that as the population ages, we're going to need more help making sure that those folks are healthy and can maintain vision. And optometry has the advantage in that it is growing a little bit. It is. Right?
Yeah.
But the only way we're ever going to meet those demands is if we grow optometry a lot.
Right.
And so thinking about people who are eligible to go to optometry school to become optometry, thinking about populations, I think is actually a really, really smart way to look at leveraging folks that may not have thought about it as a career and bringing them into the optometry fold.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, you got to think outside of the box. And with Black Eye Care Perspective, our whole goal is to just, align with what the U.S. Census is, right? So we have our 13% promise, where essentially we just want to see an increase in students, and that 13% rate, also optometrists, board positions, POP in your office, things of that nature. That way we can reflect the patient base that we serve. It's very important. In order for us to give the best health outcomes, we got to make sure that we have all the players behind the scenes, in front of the scenes, to be able to accommodate the patient base that's there.
So if we think about it just kind of chronologically, we were together. You were a technician. You said, okay, I'm going to go to optometry school. Where you went, you were successful.
Yeah.
You graduated. And then you said, I'm going to practice.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So you came back. We were in the same office a little bit. It was great, right? Then you decided, I'm leaving. And not just, I'm going to go to the next neighborhood or the next state, but I'm leaving the continent.
That is correct.
And so can you talk about the driving force? Because I think this is fascinating.
Yeah.
And the time that you spent.
Yeah. So I decided to go abroad, and I moved to Nigeria. And my wife is Nigerian, so that's the connection. And I was blogging at the time, actually, when we were eye care associates. And at that time, we had our profiles and our bios. And a part of my bio, I had a link about blogging about eyewear. It's actually one of the first eyewear bloggers in the game. And what I noticed was that I was getting a lot of hits, not just locally, but also internationally, and in particular, Nigeria. So I had an opportunity to actually fly to Nigeria with my wife for her grandmother's 90th birthday. And while I was out there, I was like, you know what? I'm going to stop by some optometric practices. And as soon as I walked into the door, they looked at me like I was a celebrity. They looked at me like I was the president. And, it was just a feeling that was just unmatched, and I enjoyed it. And at that time, I was talking to a lot of the practices, asking them about what their obstacles are, what the gaps are, how could I be of service? And then it was just a calling that I said, you know what, I need to do something out here. So at that time, I decided to make a pivot and move to Nigeria. And the first year, I really did a lot of consulting. I went from every practice and had a conversation with everyone so I could understand the landscape. And then from there, I got into distribution, where I started to develop my own eyewear known as Eyetalks. And I started to sell to all these different practices abroad as well. And from there, I developed friendships and relationships and began to know all the movers and shakers. And then from there, I decided to open up a practice because at that time, I understood the landscape.
Yeah.
So I was able to build.
So it started as a look at, here's an opportunity for me to be able to create a relationship.
Yeah.
There's a need for product.
Oh, yeah.
And product specifically designed and developed for this population. And then it became, well, I really see an opportunity for me to help them from a health perspective as well. And then it grew into practice ownership.
That's correct. The practice was Euphoria, which stands for the state of happiness through the art of vision. And the whole goal was to just, create happy patients, essentially, right? And help them through that patient journey more than anything. And ever since then, I've blossomed with that population, that demographic, and not just in Nigeria, but really the entire continent.
Yeah.
And as a result of, creating that practice, which is no longer open, it's shut down once the pandemic hit, and then I pivoted back to the States. But as a result of that, I was able to make these lifelong relationships and begin a new organization known as Africa Media.
Yeah. So talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, sure. So one thing that my father has always told me is that I need to just stay in my lane, right? Don't go out trying to do all this extra stuff. Do what you're great at. And what I'm great at doing...
You listened well, right?
Right? And one thing that I'm great at doing is running my mouth, right? And the other thing that I'm great at is branding. So I took the opportunity to take all the knowledge that I gained from doing all these market visits and talking to all these optometrists, and I partnered with a colleague down in South Africa by the name of Obi Malopi, and we started Africa Media, where it's a media hub where all eye care professionals in Africa come together and talk about anything eye care related. And as a result of it, it's brought the African community together to be able to get the best practices and elevate their practice, but most importantly, just get a different perspective. I was able to take what we do here in the U.S. and sprinkle that all throughout the African continent.
And when you think about how optometry, well, let's be broader. Let's think about eye care in Africa, maybe more specifically in Nigeria. What differences did you see or are you seeing between what we here in the U.S. consider optometry and optometry's capabilities and what's happening with people who are practicing in Nigeria? Yeah,
so great question. And even kind of take a step back, I actually had to get licensed out there. I had to take a board and all that other jazz. And the way their organization is structured, or optometry is structured out there, is very similar to what we do here in the States. But I think if I had to take a look back and see what the biggest gaps were there, it was really about products. It is a pain in the butt to get products into that country. The cost of import, to be able to change the Naira into the dollar and the Naira being devalued, it's difficult. They also have an insurance system, but not everyone's privy to that insurance system, right? Not every practice has an opportunity to have those insurance companies be a part of their practice. So it's all about who you know. You got to really shake those hands and kiss those babies and make that magic happen, right? And then again, just like anything else in life, it's all about who you know. I was blessed to be able to serve the governors, the politicians, the business owners, the oil tycoons and things like that because of my wife's father. He was a big businessman out there, and I was able to tap into his market, so he made it an easy and soft landing. But in regards to optometry, it's pretty much the same that's here. It's just more of getting products into that country. They do full scope. They prescribe medications. And the main issue out there is really just access.
And so you were doing a lot of back and forth during that time,
yes,
right? So you're spending time in Nigeria, chunks, and then you would come back to the U.S.
Absolutely.
You guys were having your first child.
Oh, yeah.
So there was a lot going on.
A lot going on.
How did you balance all of your day-to-day and still take care of this now budding business in a place that you didn't really live full-time?
Yeah. So I give all the love in the world to my wife. Strong support system at home, right? My wife, she held me down, because when I opened that practice in Nigeria, I had to pay for everything out of my own pocket. I couldn't go to the bank here and say, hey, I'm opening something in Nigeria. I'm going to give you X amount of dollars. I had to take all that money out of my own account, right? Thank God my wife has a good paying job and I had some money saved. But during that tough time, it was really support, not just with her, but also with my eye doctor, to be able to come back into the States and be able to practice and see patients and make some money. That was a game changer. And then also my mother and my sister and her sisters, they were there to take care of my son whenever I wasn't there. My wife had something to do as well. So I just had a strong village, a strong support system more than anything to make it through.
And I think that's actually really important, and it's something that we don't always talk about.
Yeah.
Because there are very few things that you do that you are completely able to do on your own.
Right.
You end up having to have the support of numerous people, and so it's always, for me, important to be able to call out, hey, this person helped me. This is how I got to where I was going.
Yeah.
I think that's important because Aliola was very helpful. You through.
Honestly, I don't know how she deals with me. I mean, I was telling you earlier, like, I miss my kids, but I know my wife don't miss me.
One of the things that I think is unique in your point of view and how you think about things is that in optometry in general, we understand that we have the vision side of what we do.
Yes.
That is kind of the root and the crux of optometry. We have, over time, built a strong position for being able to take care of patients from a medical perspective. And those two things come together in what we consider to be day-to-day practice.
Right.
And the best practices have a balance of being able to take care of visual health and visual needs. And they also have the ability to take care of holistically the patient from a healthcare perspective.
Right.
And we don't have, in my opinion, a lot of conversation that really talks about how to forward from the product perspective to go along with that medical side. I think there's a lot of assumption that because the product side is the root of optometry, something we've always had, that we're all good at it.
Yeah.
And that we need the help on the medical side. I don't know that that's fully true, though. And I think some of the conversations that we've had and even what you're mentioning today points to that need to be able to educate people on that product side.
Oh, yeah. It's no doubt about it. I mean, at the end of the day, it's all about the doctor-patient relationship. It's all about the patient journey. And you have to understand that patient journey, not just from the patient side, but also from the employee, the team member side. You have to be able to understand it from both sides. That way, when you have these conversations and you understand that patient better, you're able to provide a better solution for that patient. And honestly, we're at a time now where we have a lot of innovation and technology, whether it's, frames and lenses or drugs to help these patients, that we can really change lives day in and day out. But, I'm a firm believer that it really begins with the front desk. When patients come in, you got to have your front desk that has a great personality, that's smiling, that reflects the doctor's energy and making that patient feel welcome. But then you got to have an amazing technician. Your technician has to be able to ask all those incredible questions, those lifestyle questions, to be able to cue that doctor up for success. And it's very important for that doctor, when they're sitting in that exam lane, to be able to have a real conversation, to put that patient on a pedestal, to spend time without anything eye care related, but to get to know that patient that's sitting in front of them. By the time I'm done talking to my patients, before I even jump into eye care, I already know all the latest gossip, who's dating who, what happened on this reality TV show, and what someone's mama did to someone's future fiance or whatever it may be, right? I know all the latest gossip. But most importantly, during that time with that doctor-patient interaction, I've built trust. And that's the thing that I don't think we really focus on enough, is the trust that we have to build and create in that exam lane. And once I'm able to build that trust, then I'm able to prescribe the right solutions to our patients, right? And we got a lot of cutting-edge technology that's out there. And then from there, I love to just, do my powerful handoff that I do in my practice to be able to educate my team and that patient on what we can do to help them live their best lives. This patient journey is it's touching to me, because every single day I get to help people live their best lives with the most precious sense known to mankind, which is sight. And as a result of it, it's been a blessing, not just professionally, but also personally, and it's made me a leader in my community, and I love every second of it.
And I think that it shows in all the things that you do, right? The passion is there.
Yeah.
I also think that it's really important to be able to draw the parallels of vision and day-to-day activity for patients. And sometimes I think it gets lost, right?
Gets lost in the sauce.
So as an example, I still see patients, and I have a lot of licenses to practice optometry in a variety of places. So
Sure.
When I go to some of our practices, I can step in and help, and I make it a habit. Why are you here? Right. And there are very few patients that will answer me with anything other than, I just want to make sure I'm seeing well. Right. And it doesn't matter to the patient if you have diagnosed that they have glaucoma, that they've got diabetic ret, they're thankful for that, right?
Oh, yeah.
But they're most impressed when you can actually get them to see for their
well.
day-to-day function.
Yep.
And what's really interesting about that for me is that if you think about the number of people that are touched because that person sees well,
Oh, yeah.
it becomes exponential,
Yeah.
right? And what I don't want to happen is for us as a profession to lose sight of us being able to touch people in that particular way.
Oh, yeah.
Because if we're not doing it, nobody does it the way optometry does it, right?
Correct.
And so I am a big fan and a big proponent of expanded scope. I have gone through the laser courses. I have licenses in states with huge scope.
Yeah.
And I look forward to my ventures out to those states because I'm like, I want to push that button. But at the same time, I want to be able to bring that patient what it takes for them to see their very best.
Absolutely. And I love that you touched on it. I mean, it is a compounding effect, right? If you help that one person, not only are they going to be able to see the function, but they're going to be able to drive their children to school.
Absolutely.
It's like all those little things. I think sometimes we become myopic and we don't look at, the real big picture. Like, this one person is going to touch 50 lives.
Yeah.
How can we make sure that when they touch those 50 lives touch another 50, right?
That's right.
So it's very important to make sure that we have that communication, build that relationship, and most importantly, just always put that person that's in front of you on that pedestal at first.
So talk to me a little bit, though, about defocus, because now that we've talked about Africa media, right? You have defocus is the media arm here in
the States, yeah.
And it includes, or it kind of was built from some of the things you were doing by yourself early, and then you brought in some partner,
right?
Specifically Dr. Lyerly, who I've seen run around here.
Oh, yeah, she's running around here.
And so can you talk to me about the Focus Media's aim and some of the things that you guys have done there?
Yeah, sure. And let me take a step back. With Defocus Media, it actually started as a social media company where we were creating social media content for doctors.
Okay.
And, we were an early adapter, or started it earlier in the game. And what we found out was that doctors are a pain in the butt. They don't want to listen to anything that we asked them to do.
Yeah.
We're asking them to take pictures. We were asking them to write this comment.
It's hard, Darryl.
They wouldn't do anything that we asked. But at some point, it started to gain traction. And I looked at Jennifer and I said, we need more clients. And she said, okay, so how are we going to do this? I said, we're going to start a podcast. And she said, I don't know how to start a podcast. She said, do you know what a podcast is? I said, no, but my wife listens to them all the time. So she said, how are we going to do this? I said, I'm going to look it up on YouTube. So I looked it up on YouTube and we wrote out our first podcast. It wasn't video, it was just audio. And it was either Sir Oliver Goldsmith, who's based in the UK, big eyewear designer who designed the frames for a lot of these big celebrities back in the day, or it was one of the cutting-edge technology, iNetra at the time. It was one of those two, I can't remember. And from there, I told Jen, hey, we need a pivot. This is our lane. So from there, we kind of built the biggest optometry podcast network ever, right? We have over 250,000 downloads. We have about 6 different podcasts on our network. We have everyone from professors at optometry schools to optometry students to seasoned ODs that talk about everything eye care related. We have various partners from Johnson & Johnson Vision to Essilor Luxottica to all different size companies. And our whole thing is to really push the profession forward. We want to create authentic dialogue about what's going on in the industry. We want to fill those gaps, and we want to empower our eye care professionals to be able to prescribe the best solutions in the exam lane. So we have done quite a bit in a little bit of time, but most importantly, we have a lot of fun.
That's incredible. And you really do have to have a lot of fun. It's got to be something that you want to be able to do it. The question becomes, and I've asked this question before of some people because I just can't figure out where they're getting their time from.
Yeah.
So you have 2 beautiful children at home. You've got your wife at home. You've got your day-to-day practice.
Yes.
And then you've got all this. Where are you finding the time, and what is the driver that helps you look for that time?
Yeah, so the driver are my children, no doubt about that. I mean, even in the exam lane, I have pictures of my kids up. And if I have a patient that's giving me a hard time, I just look over to them, and it allows me to push through. But I'm an early riser. I'm up every morning, 4:35 a.m. in the morning, and I get a lot of work done at that time before I get in. Yeah, that's it. That's the secret sauce to life. If you can get up early, you can do whatever you want in this world, right? So Team AM, no doubt about it. The other piece is I've learned over time from you and others that, you can't do it all on your own.
Yes.
So I have a team, right? I have an executive assistant, I have a director of operations, and I have a group of podcasters that do a lot of work. So as a result of that, I'm able to do a lot of the back end stuff, have the conversations, structure the deals, and run my mouth more than anything. And I think the other piece too, when it comes to Black Eye Care Perspective and Africa Media, it's all about finding people that complement you.
Yeah.
I'm great in certain things, but I'm not so great in other things. So when I partner with people, I make sure that they excel where my weaknesses are. And as a result of that, that's helped me to amplify everything that I do times 10.
Yeah, and I think that's important. I had the chance to sit down with a young lady. Her name's Kathy Higgins. She's on one of the other episodes, and the list of things that she has accomplished was scary.
Yeah.
Right. So, full disclosure, you do some intake work for me so I can understand a little bit about what's important to you.
Yeah.
And so one of the things I ask in the intake is give me kind of an idea of what your awards are, right?
Oh, wow.
And so she was like, I can't do that. Not for the reason you think. I'm going to send you a list. And so she sent me this list, right? And it literally was like an Egyptian scroll. Like you open the list and it went, and I thought, oh my God, how do you have time to do this?
Right.
And so I posed the same question to her, and her response was that you end up making time, but you only make that time because people help facilitate you doing it.
That's
right.
It.
And I thought it's very, very true.
Yeah. And it goes back to also what I told you my father told me a long time ago, to stay in my lane. See, a lot of people think I do a lot of things, right? But I really don't. Because when you look at everything that I'm doing, it's all about branding. From my position at My Eye Doctor, Program Director for Brand and Inclusion. Defocus Media, it's all about branding and marketing. Black Eye Care Perspective, it's all about branding and marketing. Africa Media is the same thing. So I'm doing the same thing, and it just all overlaps. I can have a conversation at this conference, and that conversation would start off about, man, I want to partner with My Eye Doctor because we have this amazing dry eye product, and I want to get it into your organization. And the conversation builds from there to, I also want to get on Defocus Media to talk about my product because you got a good fan base, and how can we make that happen?
Right.
And then from there to lead to, we need to get more Black and brown faces leveraging our products or telling us where we can improve. That way we can accommodate that community as well.
Oh, I see. Yep.
So being able to stay in my lane and do all the things that are the same, I'm really not doing a lot. And then being able to have a strong support cast and having the right people around me makes a world of difference as well.
I mean, it helps if your lane is fairly wide. And you've added things to your lane to make sure that it's wide enough to accommodate the incoming, right? But I do think that that's a really, really good point.
Oh, yeah.
As we've talked about things, it feels like you've been fairly focused, pun kind of intended, over time, right? And you've been able to kind of think about how I can have influence over some part of optometry,
right?
Also how I can really actually touch patients in a wider way. Right?
Absolutely.
If I am a young technician today, or I am a student just starting my student career, what pieces of advice would you give to make sure that I'm successful in where I land?
Oh, I love this question. I really do. And I think the main thing is, you really have to understand that we all have personal brands. We all do. And you have to really dig into that personal brand to understand where you're going to go. And when it comes to personal branding, I always like to break down the word brand. And I start with B, really starting with the word belief. What is your purpose? What is your vision? What are your core values? You have to understand that before you can go anywhere else. So I always tell the students to, do that. The next step is reputation. What are you known for? What's online? What are you doing? What are you great at? What do you suck at, right? You got to really understand those things as well. And then the A really stands for advantage. What are you great at? You know, there could be some things that we like, but what are you actually really great at?
Yeah.
And how can you lean into that? That's a big deal. And for the end, of course, you know, you got to be able to network, right? You got to be able to create value for people that surround you, and you got to build a community that supports whatever your purpose and your vision is. And then for the D, you got to be able to deliver. You got to get out there, shake those hands, and kiss those babies. And you got to build that personal brand. And once you're able to build that personal brand, you're able to figure out, who can I partner with? Does my doctor share the same values that I share? Well, yeah, they do. Their purpose is to help patients live their best lives. My purpose is to create a state of happiness through the art of vision. So you see where the overlap is. Prime example is also one of my core values is continuous education. One of my eye doctors is to connect knowledge.
Yeah.
So being able to understand who your personal brand is or what your personal brand is and align it to a company that aligns with your personal brand will allow you to never have to work a day in your life and always have fun. So it's very important to, you know, have these conversations with these students, with the youth, to understand that we all have personal brands. And if we want to make a big impact and be very effective, we got to understand how to align it with the right partners.
Yeah. The more I've done this with people, the more you start to hone in on a couple of things that you just said. They're common among people who are successful. There is a big difference between doing what you're good at and having a passion for something, and they are not necessarily the same. And so there are a lot of people who pursue their passion, right? You know, like, I am passionate about performing on stage as a singer. I am not good at it, right? But I could pursue that because that's really my passion.
Right.
Would I ever be successful? Probably not. And so thinking about those things that you do enjoy and those things that you are good at, when you find that intersection, you can create something that has never been created before. And when I talk to people who've been uniquely successful in things, it is often the combination of finding what they were good at and what they liked, and those two things met, and then they launched a career or they created a product or they started something that was different. And so, you know, I think your advice is really sound, right?
Thank you.
Because when you choose a career, optometry as a career, there's so many aspects within optometry that could be the piece that you're uniquely good at, right? And so, you know, not all of us are phenomenal contact lens fitters. Like, some of us just don't do really complex contact lenses. Some of us could never do vision therapy or deal in low vision, right?
If it doesn't work with a soft lens, I don't want anything to do with it, right?
Well, but that's understanding where your limitation is, right?
Right.
But then there's all these other aspects of optometry. There's the relationships that you foster between the different professions. There's the time that you spend advocating for optometry. There's the space that you are in when you're promoting what optometry can do for folks, and understanding that developing the career is great. It's a basis, but it doesn't necessarily mean that every day that you spend is going to be in the exam lane. Is it better one or two, right?
Yeah. And, you know, to add one more piece to understanding that personal brand, I think something that all new graduates or students or anyone in that younger generation should have are mentors. Mentors are huge. I mean, you served as my mentor since I was a technician, and I'll never forget this. I remember like it was yesterday. Stepped out the exam lane. I was practicing with you at that time, and I was asking you a question about a patient, and you pulled me to the side. You said, come here. He said, don't ever walk out of that room not being confident. Talk about you're going to go ask another doctor about what's going on. Do you remember that conversation?
I remember that conversation.
And ever since then, that has boosted my confidence through the roof. And I've told so many of my mentees that same thing. You got to have confidence. You got to be a leader. I even tell my son every single day because of that conversation. In order to be a leader, you got to be an ace in everything that you do. And I break that down as, I like acronyms if you haven't figured that out by now.
That's awesome.
But A is, you got to have a great attitude, right? Patients love people that have great attitude. Don't go in there with a sad face, looking crazy. Like, you got to go in there with a big
100%,
smile. Don't say you got to have a
100%.
bunch of energy. But then I have 2 C's for ACE. The first C is, you got to be confident. You got to have confidence, right? I mean, patients are coming in to see us because we have all the answers. They're not going online to get their solutions. They're coming to us because we have the right answers.
Particularly now, right? Because
Right.
you've got a wealth of information available to you.
Yeah.
They've made the conscious choice to seek professional help.
Yeah. Another C is competent.
Yeah.
Got to be competent, right? Got to come to meetings like Optometry's meeting, take CE courses, know your craft, be able to educate the patients, and make sure they have the right solutions. And the last part of that is E, which is for empower.
Yeah.
Right? You got to take all of that information to be able to empower folks that are in front of you. But it's very key to have a mentor. The other piece that I really appreciate that you helped me out with was I said, Dr. Beatty, man, I want to grow my career. I don't know where to go. I'm a little lost in the sauce. Man, kind of give me the right direction. And you said, you need to read this book. And it was a Simon Sinek book. Was it The Reason Why? Or
Start with your why.
There you go. Start with why. And that book changed my life. And it just really helped me to understand how to be more confident in that exam lane, but most importantly, look at my own purpose and figure out how I can amplify that purpose. And that's kind of what led into all the branding and all those other things. So, a lot of times people that are mentors don't realize the impact they have on mentees because they don't have these conversations. But you have made a big impact in my career and how I practice as an optometrist.
That means more to me than you know. Like that for me, that's a really big deal because never ever was the intention to be a mentor. It was really to stop you from making a mistake of letting a patient understand that you didn't know the answer. But I do think that that's right. It's particularly in a world where as students are now doing a lot of things in clinic for the very first time.
Yes.
Right. And they are doing advanced procedures for the very first time.
Correct.
And I was in a lecture, and the conversation was about a student, and the student was going to be using radio frequency to remove a lesion for a patient. It was a very simple thing. Any of us could do it, right?
Yeah.
And the student went to grab the lesion to use the radio frequency, and the patient said, "How many of these have you done?" Well, it was the student's first day in clinic to do this, right? But the student astutely said, "You won't believe how many of these I've done." Right? And that is definitely what you just described, right? It's they had confidence, they thought about it, they were quick on their feet, patient felt at ease, the procedure went the way it was supposed to go, everybo's happy, right?
Absolutely.
And so, it's actually eye-opening for me to get and sit and talk with you. I mean, I know we see each other quite frequently. But, we never actually sit and have this conversation.
Oh, yeah.
And full disclosure, you were going to come and do the show at home.
Yeah.
We were going to get into the studio and we were going to do this. And so when we got this opportunity, we said, well, why don't we do it here?
Absolutely.
Which I'm thrilled about.
Oh, yeah.
And thankfully, we had somebody who could remember the name of the book, right? Because that would not have happened if we were in studio. And so that's also a plus for having people here with us.
Yes.
Hopefully, I will get you over, though. We'll do a follow-up.
Oh, yeah.
Because I'm thinking about taking pearls from each of the interviews that I do.
Oh, nice.
Putting them together and
That'd
having
awesome.
these short episodes or short shows about that. So I'll invite you to do some of that stuff.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, if you guys are not subscribed already, you should subscribe. Uncommonlyremarkable.com is easy to remember. It takes you directly to the show. We are on a season break, so this is a special episode between seasons now, so we'll get this one out. If you enjoyed the time, make sure you subscribe. Give me a thumbs up, like it, click things, make the little bells ring, because it all makes the algorithm work a little bit. Until next time, keep being remarkable, and thank you so much for the time, Darryl.
Thank you for having me. This has been fantastic.